What's going on, everyone? Crime Stripper here, and got a boat here that I haven't featured on the channel yet, on the YouTube channel. I play it quite often on stream, but it's the new Brenham, and fantastic boat. My first game in it ever went for uh, 260K. I'm a fan of the boat. I like it, and yeah, gonna get into this here. And it's kind of a coincidence that this particular game happened when it did. Earlier in the day, I was up a little bit earlier, and I had been watching some of Jimbo the Gray's stream, which if you don't know Jimbo the Gray, he's a fantastic streamer and a great dude. Please make sure to go give him a follow. But yeah, he asked me on there, he said, Stripper, I know you play the Hindenburg a lot. What are your feelings about the Hindenburg versus the Brenham? And I had, an answer. Um, I think in this game, it'll show it a little bit better, um, how I would illustrate that answer. And I'll go over that more at the end here. But right off the rip here, we've got a friend of the community here, Joe Beanie, is over on the enemy team in Hawaii. They're a fantastic player. So this is already going to be a fairly difficult game there, knowing that Joe Beanie's over there in the Hawaii. And this game is going to be back and forth, and I'm gonna have a good game. At certain points, definitely towards the latter half of this game, it felt more like a 6v6 match. But yeah, going back to this again, we're seeing over here, we've got Joe Beanie making a push for that island. At the moment, I'm kind of not looking over there. I'm probably talking a bit on my stream. But that is a super, super strong position for Hawaii on this map. I see Joe Beanie's making a run for it, even though they're a friend of the stream. Want to beat them up a little bit for getting into that position. That position for Hawaii is kind of like a free farm, not just for damage, but for XP. Utilizing the radar and the hydro. If something were to take up a back position here, you're basically going to be able to keep them spotted forever. Transversely, if anything makes a dive into Bravo, you keep them lit. So we get some rounds off there over into Joe Beanie, knowing that they are going to be in a crazy, crazy strong spot. Over here at Charlie, our Alvaro has just taken Charlie. They just spotted the Hayate. Our Hawaii and our Sabir are here as well. There's another Brenham over there that has been spotted as well. So again, strong spot for Brenham to be in, and as well another Hawaii on that flank. We initially pick up Alpha. However, you're going to see just how strong that position is. Plymouth gets spotted over here. I am divved with Rad, Mr. Rad Sandwich Eater, who is a fantastic player who's coming over here to help. Would have been ideal for Rad to be in a Vermont and just snipe from here, but knowing that there was only one other battleship over here, Rad comes over here to help, that XP pool, or HP pool rather. So Plymouth has been spotted. I don't want that Plymouth to get away with just sitting on the backside of that smoke for free, so I push up. I'm gonna pay for pushing up, but this Plymouth isn't going to be able to sit there for free anymore. And you'll see one of the things that the Brenham can do that I had mentioned to Jimbo's question that the Hindenburg would not be able to do. And that's just how quickly you can proc Luchins. So we've got a Sabir over here. I haven't taken too many shots minus those early shots at Joe Beanie. And another thing that the Hindenburg can't do as well as the Brenham. The Brenham gets much, much more usable torpedoes. So yeah, 12-kilometer torpedoes doing 16.5 K damage, and at a speed of 50 knots. Respectable for McCruiser as well as the range. Very, very good. I take a big slap there from the Sabir. The other thing, even though they're 150 millimeter guns, the AP slaps. And it's 8 AK right there. I'm not even aiming that well. I'm more or less just trying to get away. That's another 4.5K with the AP there with just my back guns. 2K. I am going to, and I probably should have switched to HE here. So the hot technology would have been to switch to HE and hopefully get this Sabir to burn their DCP before my torps go in, because now I can see they are. Um, we've already got a fair amount of hits, and we've only been really using our rear guns, and one of our guns is taken out. And we're going to be able to farm the Sabir as well as we pick up 4 torpedoes here. Those torps would not have landed if those were Hindenburg torps, so if we're keeping that up, I'm already up to 76k damage there and 116 shell hits. So very, very close to proccing Luchin's skill. For those of you that might not be familiar with that, so Luchin's skill here will increase my rate of fire once I hit 140 shell hits. A little bit harder to do in the Hindenburg. However, if you look here, not so hard to do in the Bremen. And I've already procced it, and we're just a few moments into this game. So my rate of fire is going to be gross for the rest of this game. And that is a perk, and I'm free farming this Sabir right now from behind this island. Probably should have switched to AP a little bit quicker here, but I was thinking about getting another fire. They have their Kuznetsov just proc, so they're gaining HP. However, you know, between myself, the Hawaii, and Rad getting some shots here, this Sabir is going to be basically melted. Unfortunately for the Sabir, the Plymouth just didn't give them the support that they needed. Neither did their Hayate. And looking back here now, over on the other side of the map, Rad's kind of positioned himself, trying to stay away from the Hayate and Plymouth, as well as Joe Beanie's just farming right over here. Their other Hawaii makes a bold move. So Hawaii can be a bit of a hard counter to Bremen, depending on the range and the situation. And transversely, though, a situation like this, Brenham can be a hard counter to the Hawaii. And this individual just wasn't giving it the respect that it deserved, nor was he giving my div mate the respect that he deserves, and he gets slapped out. Granted, they take out the Haragumo there, but I don't think it was worth giving away their life like that. It is what it is. I have HE loaded here. There's a reason why. I probably would have done more damage to Brenham with HE. I know that there's a Vermont here, so the thought process was, you know, if I can get a fire on the Vermont, for those of you that don't know, even though the Vermont's huge, because reasons and logic, it has very, very low concealment. And if you're new and don't realize this, if you have a fire on your boat, your concealment is increased. So he's dark. I was hoping to pick up fires on them if they were a little bit closer. That's why I had the HE loaded. Going to continue to pepper in this Vermont. And again, yeah, I switched to the AP here because now he's just giving me broadside, and this is just too juicy. Pick up a fire on him. Watch this Vermont start melting here. There's a 13k salvo with a fire on him. There's 4 point whatever. There's 3, there's 4, another 4, even though he's kind of angled and I'm over an island. I mean, it's just pretty gross, consistent damage that we're doing there, and we're already up to, you know, 160 plus K in damage. Rad has then moved up to try to help out with the Plymouth. If you notice too, Rad had to kind of move here because Rad was getting farmed again by Brenham and Joe Pini over there in the Hawaii. And our Minotaur gets absolutely nuked there by the Montana. So the Montana is another one of the players on the enemy team that plays a fantastic game. The Montana, this Brenham, Joe Beanie, and their Trump all have fantastic games for various different reasons. Um, Trying to farm this Brenham, I can't. I'm having to lead my shots up because I'm familiar with the map, and I know if I go down much farther, the shells just won't make it over. That's again just kind of knowledge that comes with 38,000 games played. Um, Notice over here my Slav is pretty low, and they've got a Shikishima barreling down into them, as well as our subs fairly low. So I'm going to switch over to the Shikishima and then help farm them out. Over on the Charlie side, things have been pretty, kind of wrapped up. However, they still have a fantastic Montana player over there, as well as Joe Beanie. I pick up a fire here on the Shikishima, and we're going to, farm into them here. Our Slava gets a couple rounds into them. I get another fire on the Shiki. And yeah, just gonna farm. It's a free farm. It's kind of oversaturated now, so I switched to the AP technology here while they are somewhat oversaturated. They got a salvo out onto the dying Shikishima, but they still have a couple guns left for me, so I'm going into kiting technology here. So, and again, just my rear guns on them. I'm doing 5k per rear gun salvo, as well as the fire damage, and the Shikishima's kind of melting. Rad's gonna come over here, try to position himself to help me with the Shikishima. You can see his shells just came in there, kind of help me out here. The submarine is going to eventually pick up the kill here on the Shikishima with the torpedoes here. And again, Montana, so their Hawaii, our Hawaii rather, goes up here and is trying to look for farming angles on Joe Beanie as well as their Montana. We'll get into that in a little bit. The thought was right, and it was the right play. It was close though. It was close. Almost borderline too passive. If you looked up there, they're farming pretty effectively. I noticed the range that Joe Beanie's at here at a certain point, and I think it's around 15k. The next time that they are spotted, I popped my hydro here just because I know that there was a submarine in Alpha. If I look, Joe Beanie's 16k away from me, and I look at about where they're at, so that gives me a good indication for judging where that gap is, because we saw the Vermont heading down this way. So I switch, and I'm gonna put some speculative torpedoes up towards that channel. So again, you're going to probably say, well, you've only got 12-kilometer torpedoes. Well, true. However, if the Vermont is coming towards me, which they are, they're now at 13k, that is going to close that distance. So hopefully, if I do this right, the torp should be hitting them at about that time. There's my high caliber 252k. We pick up a fire in the Vermont, continuing to farm the Vermont. Pick up another fire on them. My div mate, Mr. Radrick, is also here to help me. This Montana is being a straight up gremlin up there, and essentially, killed our Sabir with the help from Joe Beanie, and is kind of holding two ships back now. Our submarine is now working over the Vermont, and or trying to rather, missed his torps there. Rad gets some more good hits into the Vermont. Should have been aiming up higher. That was poor aim by me there, those last three salvos. I switched to the HE again, thinking that their DCP is probably up. Our sub again continuing to peed. However, I don't think the Vermont anticipated my torps coming in here. Pick up a torpedo and a flood on the Vermont. So now they are flooding and on fire. There is my Witherer. I switch back to the AP. They are just melting, and there is the kill on the Vermont. Rad now flips around his ship. This Hawaii, as you can see, Joe Beanie is still farming into the Hawaii, or trying to. The Alvaro's got some torps on the Montana. And if we look to on the map, the Trump was last spotted where Joe Beanie kind of was. So that leads me to believe that the Trump is going to do one of two things: either try to make a push for Charlie, or come down towards where Rad and I are. Uh, Looking at if they're understanding where the Alvaro is, they might even make a play on the Alvaro, and that's exactly what they do. So they make a play to go take out the Alvaro. This Trump played a fantastic game, and you'll see was about that close to killing me, which could have again made this game interesting. I just put some speculative torps up there, thinking, hey, if the Trump continues on that path, they could wind up into them because they were 10k away from me. Jobini shooting at me, Trump spotted for just a second. I was shooting the Montana, trying to farm out the Montana. At this moment too, the Hawaii's kind of putting out rounds there. It would have been nice, honestly, if this Hawaii would have, not necessarily came up to the Montana, but came more this way, then cut it out the Montana, and maybe they would have been able to have shots on that Trump. Maybe our Alvaro lives. Who knows? Jobini is peppering me. I'm just trying to stay moving, as well as trying to stay angled and away from this Montana. This Montana is trying to make a play on my div mate, Rad, and our submarine is capping Alpha. Rad puts some rounds here into the Montana. I'm trying to pepper the Monty here. I'm already at 308k damage. Doing what I can. I pick up a fire there on the Montana as well. Again, the Hawaii is still in that little cubby. Understood, and I understand why that's being done at certain points, but there's again a time for a little bit of aggression. I think that they're enjoying the free farm there. However, now the Trump is in Charlie, and the only thing we really have to be able to see that would be the Hawaii's radar. So that's gonna again make this game interesting, since we're actively not getting any points at the moment. We are flipping Alpha, however. I've lost my range now on the Montana, so these are going to be kind of my last rounds here on the Montana. Brad is trying to push on the backside of that island so he can eventually get underneath Joe Beanie's gunline. I get spotted here, so I'm just throwing up torpedoes. Brad gets a fantastic shot on the Montana, takes out the Montana for our brothers in arms medal. And there's pesky Jobini doing the Lord's work over there. Again, my Hawaii is kiting out now. Again, maybe just a little bit scared, whatever. But a player like Jobini in the Hawaii with a submarine in the game and a Trump, this is still a losable game, 100%. And I'm hardlit, and that's going to be the Trump. I really don't have a lot of HP left, so Trump drops their planes on me. I ideally want to get to that island that's right there, and try to put that island between me and the Trump. Rad is now being forced to stall points in Bravo, with kind of seeing where Jobini and the sub were last spotted, and I'm telling him on comms, I think this Trump's going to kill me. Luckily, however, we stay alive through that drop. We have our hydro going, so we spot these torps, and we get around the torps here. Our Hawaii's finally making it down out of his hidey hole. I'm still hard lit here. And again, a couple of things that could maybe have turned the game for them. Trump is going to drop me again. Maybe, just maybe, if the Trump could have dropped those planes onto Rad and reset Rad, could have been maybe different. Who knows? I don't think that they realized how passively our Hawaii was playing. Game's getting down to the last minute here. So they're finally dropping Rad. Hawaii's radaring now when well, we at least we hit it. Um, Again, it would have been sweet if they just got in the cap. I'm detected. I'm not detected. I don't want to throw my boat away and give the enemy team, you know, another advantage of having one less ship on our team. So I'm getting behind this island. Tromp is dropping on Rad again. There is the Tromp. They are spotted, um, and that's the game. And Jobini's working into our sub and eventually kills the sub at the end. So this game would have been, if it would have been a minute and a half longer, could have gone the other direction. So solid Brennan game for me. That's 320 AK, damage 2 kills, uh, assist and destruction. That was our E badge in the Hawaii or in Hawaii Brennan. We picked up a Witherer, our brothers in arms for our div strike team. Dreadnought because I had like no HP left. Like, made some mistakes were made. A lot were. Uh, High caliber as well. There too. 6 defended ribbons, 5 torps, some floods, plane shot down. Uh, that netted me 2.7k base experience. Our sub had 2.5k base, but then again, submarine XP multiplier bullshittery. Um, Honestly, were they that high? If they don't have that XP multiplier, who knows? Rad played a fantastic game, picking up a solo cap as well as doing huge amounts of chunk damage and eventually taking out that Montana that was, a fantastic player. On the other hand, Joe Beanie over here, absolute Chad, with almost 2k base experience on a loss. Joe Beanie came into the Twitch chat after this game and we talked about this game for a little bit. And I honestly, with the mistakes that I made, I don't know that we necessarily deserved that win. It was a really, really good back and forth game. Again, I think if that game goes another minute and a half, 2 minutes longer, Joe Beanie and that Trump probably take out Rad and then move into the caps. And who knows what our Hawaii does. The Trump again almost killed me. Played a fantastic game there as well from the Trump. And the Montana was a thorn in the side. When you look at what the Montana was doing, their positioning was pretty clutch and key. At one point, essentially with their positioning, holding back what the Sabir, the Hawaii, and the Alvaro. Um, so again, that is mixed with the fact that they know Jobini was positioned where they were, and if they came around the corner, Jobini farms them with the Montana. But that is still a realization of what the situation is. So shout out to that Montana. They played a fantastic game as well as netting 1.6k experience on a loss. The enemy Brenham also played a fantastic game. So if you look over here too, um, the Sabir was initially over with Rad and I think that they, you know, were in a position where again got farmed out probably by Jobini. If you look over here as well, then our Montana and our Libertard, uh, fairly quiet, and the Slava as well. However, they got a decent amount of XP. Well, why is that though? Probably due to tanking damage from perpetually being farmed out by Jobini, the Brennan, and that other Hawaii there. So, Jobini, these guys owe you a thank you for where they are on their experience. Um, because really it felt like a 3v3 or a 4v4 at certain points in this game, which was fun. It made it for an interesting game. And one of those close games that seem fewer and far between in World of Warships lately. Again, going back to Jimbo's question, um, which do I prefer, the Hindenburg or the Brenham? And I'm gonna put a caveat on that, because there is one way that I can help answer that a little bit better. Right now, I'm playing the Brenham because it is pretty broken. However, we'll see what happens in the future with it. Could I have performed this game in a Hindenburg? Yes, but I would have had to play it differently. If you go into this channel, I have a whole bunch of really, really big Hindenburg games. I would have just had to think differently as to how I was going to play this. However, something to keep into consideration here between the two boats, the torpedo damage that I did. So almost 50k in torps, as well as an additional 6.3k in flooding damage. So that's, 50, almost 57k damage that we're doing in just our torpedoes that I 100% would not have picked up in Hindenburg. Um, the rate of fire and the AP are huge as to how I play this. Again, um, for me, I feel like the Brenham's armor is somehow, at least just for me, it doesn't hold up the same as the Hindenburg or whatever, as well as maneuverability. I do have my Hindenburg set up considerably different than the Brenham, um, which I believe I use, rudder shift on the Hindenburg, and I don't on the Brenham. I clearly have it built into guns. Um, so it seems sluggish to me from that aspect. However, any boat in the game that you can proc that Lucian skill within like 2 minutes of the game is inherently broken. So which one do I like better? Right now I'm playing the crap out of this because I feel that this is going to be nerfed. I think that there are a few boats that are going to eventually be nerfed. I-5644 is one of those boats where in the hands of really, really talented submarine players, it's pretty gross. Like, I the first night that Blame had it, he had a game that I was playing with him. He had 3 depth strikes in it. I rated AF short on water, and his first game in it, he did 360k and went for over 4k base experience. So in the hands of someone who has hands, as I joke around saying on the stream, I think that the I-5644 is really, really gross. However, um, I don't think it's going to get hit as hard with the Nerf bat as something like the Valparaiso, the Hawaii, and the Brenham. I think that the Valparaiso needs a nerf. I'm not sure how they're going to go about doing it. I don't think that you nerf it from a gun standpoint. Secondaries are gross, but that's kind of its gimmick, right? Because then you consider how the armor is. I think if you look at how you could potentially nerf that is, I don't know, take away one of its heals or, have it not be as great of a heal, might be a way to properly nerf it. Um, the Alaska needs its Citadel raised. I had a conversation on my stream the other night, and honestly, I think if you were to, not the Alaska, the Hawaii, it's an Alaska hull, even though the Citadel sunk. That's why I was thinking that, sorry. But I think if you were to put the Tulsa's hull on the Hawaii, it would still be a fine boat. Even with that amount of HP, it would still probably be fine. You would just have to think, and you wouldn't be able to YOLO a Colombo or something like that, right, and get away with it, uh, which is disgusting to say. Um, so something needs to be done and will be done in regards to that, I believe, at some point. And in regards to the Brennan, I mean, uh, I feel everything is fairly okay in it, minus the guns, the performance. I mean, that's kind of what it's all about. It could probably do with like a detune on the actual rate of fire. Um, Slightly. I mean, again, being able to proc the Lucian skill within like the first 2 minutes of a game is pretty gross. So that probably shouldn't be a thing. Um, So for me, I'm going to, for Jimbo's question that he had for me, I'm going to say the jury is still out as to which one I like better right now. I'm going to wait on that nerf to really give it, which they're going to be at some point. I just don't know what they're going to be. To give that a proper answer, I I'm leaning this way though at the moment with which one I like just for the time being. So for the time being, this is it, and I'm going to play the crap out of it while it's still inherently pretty busted. Um, and again, the night before this game, one of my other div mates, Tommy, had a what seemed like a fairly easy 340k game. Like it's and as I mentioned before, my first game in this, not even knowing how the guns performed or anything, went for 260k. I think that again the difference too between Hindenburg and these guns with the caliber, uh, and they're obviously floatier rounds. The way that I kind of described it on stream is that the guns perform, at least like from a velocity standpoint, perform similarly to the Yodos. If you were to play like a range mod Yodo or something like that. And the way I always kind of talked about like the Yodo is it kind of, when you shoot it, it seems like an airsoft gun, like comes off the rails good, and then that kick up on airsoft guns, then it starts floating. That's kind of how it feels to me. But with the Brenham, with the rate of fire, if you notice your, like I was shooting that Montana towards the end, if you notice your shells are landing short, you have a quick enough reload where you can adjust and you really have like no penalty for it. Another reason why I think if they're going to nerf it, that's probably the route to go is something with the rate of fire. Um, but yeah, so hopefully that answers some of the questions that I got from Jimbo, or that we had. Our awesome community has had some interesting conversations since these wonderfully balanced, perfectly balanced ships have come out. And I got to showcase for you guys a fantastic game. Not only did I actually play okay for a change, but it was a good back and forth battle with some solid players. And again, shout out to Jovini, fantastic game. Shout out to my div mate Rad. It's always great diving with you and hanging out with you. I'll be on again streaming tonight as well as every night. So if you guys want to come by, say hi, and see more content like that on a regular basis, I'm over on the Twitch too. There's some links in the description for that. I hope everyone has a great rest of their weekend and you guys have a great start to your weeks, and I will catch you all later.